I always say on this channel that I really, really appreciate correction. And sometimes when correction comes, it comes because maybe we're misunderstanding each other. I don't buy into statism. It's a lie. Nobody has a higher claim over your life and property than you. If I'm not allowed to steal your stuff or harass you, you're not allowed to steal from my stuff and harass me. It doesn't matter if you're badged. It doesn't matter if you have a uniform. It doesn't matter if you come with the authority of the state. It doesn't matter if somebody wrote on a piece of paper somewhere and 535 of his friends signed off on it and agreed to harass you or steal from you. It's not legitimate. It's not right. It's against natural law. But I also realize that we live in a world where falsehood is hailed above truth. We live in the empire of lies, and truth is treason in the empire of lies. And one of those treasonous phrases or treasonous thoughts in the empire of lies is that law enforcement officers have a claim over your life and property. They can pull you over whenever they want, wherever they want. They can ask you to step out of the car. They can tell you to come out of your house with your hands up, put your hand behind your back, let me arrest you, and kidnap you and throw you into a cage. And somehow, if you did the very same action that they did, your ass would rightly be thrown into a cage because you're a danger to society. But they can do it because everybody's under this illusion that statism is a thing, and it's not. Nobody has a higher claim over your life and property than you. It's always wrong to initiate unjust force and violence on peaceful people who haven't done anything wrong. So having said that, I was watching a video yesterday and just so happened to scroll down and read my comments, and somebody said San Joaquin Valley Transparency dropped a video criticizing one of your videos through another channel called The Disconnect. Got no problem with these channels or these guys. I'm sure I'm sure they say the same thing about me, and I'm sure it's all in the spirit of, hey, let's do the right thing. Let's get out the right information. And I completely understand that. I did a video a couple months ago where a black couple with their child in the back was pulled over for an improperly illuminated license plate light. The cop asked for the driver's ID. He gives it to him. The female passenger, who I'm assuming was his wife, said, hey, don't forget your concealed carry permit. Don't forget to show them that, because in most states it's the law for you, if you have a weapon, that you have to register with the state for you to have a license, that government permission to tell you to do something you have the right to do anyway, like carry a firearm. Hey, isn't there a Second Amendment about that? It's supposed to be the supreme law of the land? Oh yeah, there is. Well, yeah, you still need to ask permission to do something that the Constitution says that you already have a right to do. So pay me some money and we'll make sure that you can have a firearm. Ridiculous. Anyway, The Disconnect points out that the female passenger said a lot of things and escalated it. I agree. I think the less you can say and the more you can keep things calm down, because keep in mind, anytime, I don't care if they seem like the nicest guy in the world, anytime you get pulled over by a cop, your life is in mortal danger. Anybody who's drunk on a power tripping high, and every cop is, their actions, it doesn't matter what their words say, their actions are telling you, I have more rights than you comply with my laws, and you won't get hurt. If you don't comply with my laws, I'm either going to fine you, or arrest you, or detain you, or throw you into a cage, or I'll just pull the trigger and kill you. And people really believe that cops have a right to do all those things, maybe not the kill part, but they believe that cops have the right to make these lawful orders. What is that? If you can't make a lawful order, and say you need to obey my commands, fellow human being, then they can't do it. Not legitimately. Society has been ruined by law enforcement. It would be better off without statism, but people go, well, without the state, how could we have law enforcement? Law enforcement helps us. How could we have roads, schools, bridges, clean running water? We all need the state. We all need to believe that somebody has a higher claim over your life and property than you, to the extent that they can steal from your stuff and it's A-okay. Anyway, getting back to this couple. Yeah, the woman should have kept her mouth shut. The more you say to a cop, the worse your situation is going to be. Say very little to the cop. Okay, so the guy gives him his driver's license, his CDL, and the cop says, okay, where's the gun? I need you to step out of the car. The driver says, what crime have I committed? You need to articulate what crime that I committed. So the disconnect pointed out, and San Joaquin Valley Transparency re-uploaded his video, that it's perfectly legal for the cop to request that you step out of your car for his safety. So here's what it is. There's a law called Mimms versus Pennsylvania. In 1977, Harry Mimm was driving on the street. Two cops saw him. They pulled him over because his registration was not up to date. It was expired. Number one, registering a vehicle, completely immoral. You're paying the state. You're basically, with a registration, you're basically paying state agents so that you can keep your private property being your car, and enable you to drive it onto the road, the roads that you built through your extorted tax money. Your money was taken from you. You didn't pay taxes. It was extorted from you. So it's all around criminal activity, okay? But then I will be the first to tell you, comply where you can. Comply where you can, but at some point you've got to stand for, it's not even so much stand for your rights, it's standing for what is right. But it's also very, very dangerous to be right when the government is so wrong. So the cops in 1977 pull Harry Mimm over for an expired registration. They ask him to step out of the car. He complies. He steps out of the car. The cop notices a bulge in his pants, which ends up being a loaded .38 revolver, and they arrest the guy for having an unregistered illegal weapon. So they take him in, goes to court. The lower courts ruled in the cop's favor, in Pennsylvania's favor. But then the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned that ruling, saying that the evidence that he had a gun should have never been brought forth because he should have never been asked to get out of his car, because that's a violation of his Fourth Amendment rights, the right to be secure in your person's houses, papers, and effects. And if we're going to talk about under the sun laws, I don't care what branch of government you're talking about, executive, judicial, or legislative, they all take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Even according to those three branches, the supreme law of the land is not the Supreme Court. The supreme law of the land is the Constitution, not your opinion of the Constitution. You know how when they make a ruling, they go, in the opinion of the court. Not the opinion of the court, not the opinion of the legislative branch, not the opinion of the executive branch. They all take an oath to uphold the Fourth Amendment. So the Pennsylvania court ruled in Mimm's favor, and they threw out the case because they say that the police violated his Fourth Amendment rights. Well, it went to the Supreme Court. Now, keep this in mind. All these courts are supposed to be obeying the Constitution, okay? This is why law is nothing more than the opinions of man backed by the threat of force and upheld by the courts. That's all it is. And the courts are just a grouping of individuals, human beings. The legislative branch are just human beings. The executive branch are just human beings. So you got all these human beings making these laws, telling these other human beings. It's just a convoluted mess. So the Supreme Court rules against the Pennsylvania court's ruling to free Mimms, and says that the cops, because of their, looking out for the cops' safety, are perfectly within their Fourth Amendment rights to ask anybody to step out of their vehicle. What the Supreme Court of the United States is actually saying is that you don't have a right to be secure in, the key word there is in, your persons, houses, papers, and effects, your effects being your property. If you're in your property, you have a right, according to the Constitution, to be secure in those effects, in your car, in a hotel room, in your house. But the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, ruled against overturned Pennsylvania's law, which is a direct violation, guys, of the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment says the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, or reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. In other words, it's not the Supreme Court's business to make a ruling for the state of Pennsylvania or any other state. So they violated the Constitution that they swore to uphold by overruling and overturning the Mimms versus Pennsylvania case. So this is where we get into the convoluted mess of statism. And it is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong. And you have to comply sometimes, or you're going to face the consequences that aren't right. Legality does not equal morality, and illegality doesn't equal immorality. When a cop tells you to step out of the vehicle, it's probably a good idea to just go ahead and step out of the vehicle. Is it right? No. I don't care what any law says. I don't care what Mimms versus Pennsylvania says. It doesn't matter what that Supreme Court decision is. You know, the only thing that really should matter in the eyes of the feds or the state is what the Constitution says. If we just had the Bill of Rights, we would have a better world. Does that mean we need a Bill of Rights to have individual rights? No. No, they could drop a nuke on Washington, D.C. and the Smithsonian Institute or wherever they're keeping the copy of the original document, and you would still have an individual right to keep and bear arms. Why? Because you're a human being. You would not have a right to pull somebody over because they didn't pay some registration fee or didn't have an illuminated license plate light. You would not have the right to have somebody step out of their house or out of their car or out of their hotel room just because you and your buddy said so. So it's a convoluted mess to go into case law. And I do go into case law sometimes just to show them their own hypocrisy. The reason I call cops oath breakers is because that is indeed what they are. They're oath breakers. Does that mean that I think the oath that or the law that they took an oath to is anything? No, it's nothing, because it's a fiction. The state is that great fiction by which everyone seeks to live at the expense of everyone else. It's a fiction. Laws are fiction. It doesn't matter if you have the entire population, 99% of the population saying, yeah, this is what Brian Young should do. That doesn't make it right. Majority is not the end all and be all of truth. They're not the procurators of truth. So while I appreciate the correction, and it's probably safer to, when you get pulled over, put your hands on the steering wheel, say as little as possible, tell your passengers to be quiet, step out of the vehicle if they ask you to. At what point do you stand up for what is right? Not so much for your rights. When you challenge, maybe while you're obeying, just say, hey, I want to plead with you on the level of humanity. Get the guy out of his uniform in his head, get him out of his power trip and say, look, I'm going to comply with you because I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get thrown into jail. I don't want to get my property seized from me. And that's another thing. The Fourth Amendment says you're securing your persons, houses, papers, and effects from searches and seizures. They've seized you out of your property that you're supposed to be safe in when they tell you to get out of the car. It's a violation of their own oath, of their own crappy laws. I like what Spooner said. Lysander Spooner said, whether the Constitution be one thing or another, it's either authorized such a government as we have. In other words, this government that we have in existence, the Constitution has either authorized that, or it has been completely, it's failed in keeping the government that we have from coming into being. It's either authorized it or it could do nothing to stop it. In either case, it's unfit to exist. If something can't keep evil from coming to you and it didn't sanction evil, what is it? It's really nothing. I mean, all this freedom of speech we talk about, you only have a freedom of speech if the person who's more powerful than you, or an organization that's more powerful than you, or a government that's more powerful than you allows you to do something. That doesn't make it right. It's just the reality we live in. If a cop pulls up behind me today with his blue lights, I'm not just going to keep on driving. Why? Because I want to make it home to my family, and I don't want to sit for 24 hours or 24 years in a cage. So I'm going to comply with him. So on the basis of, should the guy have stepped out of the vehicle? Probably to save himself the hassle. It doesn't make it right. It sucks. This is the world we live in. But my question to you, anybody who's listening to this video, is at what point do we stop the madness? Because if a state court can declare Mimms innocent and they should have never brought the .38 revolver into evidence, because they would have never known there was a revolver if they didn't violate his Fourth Amendment rights, which they did. Mimms should have been secure in his effects, his car. He should have been secure. He should have been allowed to say, all these terms. He should have been able to say to the officer, I have a Fourth Amendment right. You know, you shouldn't even have to say that, but this is the world we live in. I have a Fourth Amendment right to be secure in my effects. I would request that I could please stay in my vehicle. The guy's not doing anything wrong by having a gun just because it's not registered either, guys. He went to jail, and being pulled over for a registration that's expired is also ridiculous. It's just a convoluted pile of steaming crap. That's what infuriates me about the psychosis of those who believe in the legitimacy of government. So at what point do we say, no, enough is enough, we got to stop? The courts are going to rule on this because, officer safety. Well, what if the officer goes, hey, I don't feel secure unless you come out of your house right now. Or I only feel secure if I can break into your house. And then the court goes, yeah, well, officer safety, first and foremost, who cares about rights? Officer safety. Officers are so scared. Are they the most scared people on the planet or something? They have body armor, they're heavily armed, and they have a gang of thugs with a monopoly on force, and they're still scared of 86-year-old grandmothers and people driving around without illuminated license plates? Give me a break. So, while I appreciate San Joaquin Valley transparency and the disconnect's desire to want to correct me on the law, it's ridiculous. They disobeyed their own laws to make a new law. It's stupid. Is it wrong? Is it right for a cop to come up to you? Did they have how do you put this? What is it? Lawful order. A lawful order. Lawful order is nothing. It's just a human being asking another person to do something or commanding another person to do something, and the other person doesn't have to do it. But in this stupid, convoluted, statist world, government-loving world that we live in, if you don't do it, then the guy who thinks he's got the moral right to tell you what to do and that you have the moral obligation to obey whatever he says or you're going to get hurt, that's the world we live in. That is the world we live in. And it sucks. It really sucks. So I stand by under the law of nature, or you can call it the law of God or whatever. That man, that badged uniformed man, did not have the right to even walk up to that guy's car because of a non-illuminated license plate. And he definitely didn't have the right, the moral, natural law right to tell the guy to step out of his vehicle. And the guy had no obligation to provide any information to this guy or even pull over for that matter. But because it would have been, fatal, possibly fatal for him to just continue driving, that's the world we live in. So my question to you guys is, and I don't have the answers, at what point do we say, no, we got to wake up. This is insanity. And it's getting even more and more insane when they make more and more laws against their supreme law of the land. It's ridiculous. I agree that it's best to say very little to the cops. It's best to say, I agree with Disconnect, that the lady should have just buttoned her lip. You're just making things worse, ma'am. Just making things worse. So anyway, there's my response to the Disconnect and San Joaquin Valley transparency. If you think I'm off on something, leave your comments in the comment section below. But make it according to objective truth, not some man-made law. I agree with the original opinion of the Pennsylvania State Court. They were actually in line with the Fourth Amendment, and then the Supreme Court struck that down, and now that's the law of the land? Let's see, how many supreme laws of the land do we have? How confusing and convoluted can it get? It's ridiculous. And that's why statism is cancer. It's malignant. It just keeps growing. Things get worse and worse and worse. And then you got, back in 1933, FDR makes Executive Order 6102. Oh, you can't have gold. It's illegal to hold gold, and if you do, you're going to be thrown in jail for 5 years or a $10,000 fine. And then we get the Patriot Act, and then we got the Affordable Care Act, and you got to pay this or you're going to be fined. Rights taken away, just nibbling away at them. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the thoughts in the comment section below. Leave your thoughts for the Google Thought Police and every statist out there who thinks it's legitimate and somebody has a moral high claim over your life and property in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next heavily censored shadow ban video.